Welcome to the Dang Faith YouTube channel. This channel is more than a channel. This is a movement. This is a call to live bold, to live fearless, to live powerful in your faith. There's no more sitting on the sidelines, and there's no more playing small. It's time to stir up that fire that God has put inside each and every one of us. We're going to look into biblical wisdom for everyday life, motivation to overcome those challenges we have to face, and faith in action, because faith is meant to be lived. It's an action. It's not just an emotion. It's not just a feeling. It's something God gave us to use and use it on purpose for our everyday lives. So I ask you as we press in, are you ready to ignite your faith? My name is Minister Curtis Klinger, and I'll be your host today. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the United Faith channel, guys. I am Minister Curtis Klinger. It's a name that I ran from for a long time. It's a name that I didn't embrace for a long time. It's probably been 5 years since I've actually accepted that was a part of who I was. And I want to take this time to just address the changes in scenery, right? Now, things are different. I'm standing now. I'm dressed very, very nicely. I'm in a very nice set of clothes. There's a podium. I have my mic set up different. I have my computer in front of me with all my notes on it. No phone. I got my water cup and my Bible over here. I don't know if you can see that. And you guys are now eye level. So what this is me transitioning into taking action according to the word that God gave me a few years ago when I was sitting on the altar. And we'll get to that. But I want to start this new direction off by just telling on myself, taking you guys back to how I got here. And I'm not going to go through my whole kid life story, whatever. If you guys want to see a video on that, let me know. Drop in a comment down below. But I want to start at the beginning of my faith journey, where I finally found God, where I came from that dark place, where God found me and pulled me out. So, I guess to get started, summer to fall of 2015, I'm coming fresh off the heels of an affair. No excuses. I don't blame the person I had the affair with. I don't blame my wife for things that happened. I take full responsibility for the things I did, the choices I made. I was confused, I was lost, and I needed help. Me and my wife, we got through it, and things got okay, but I knew I needed a redirection of some sort. I knew I needed to change something, because as great as it was that me and my wife were back on good terms, and we were back on, we were healed, we were forgiven each other anyway, and we were moving forward with our lives. I couldn't help but feel like I was missing something. Like nothing had really changed. The only thing that changed is I had stopped having an affair. I still felt the way I felt on the inside. I felt lethargic. I felt very sluggish in my mind. I felt very, just not right moving around. I felt like I was just going through the motions of life, and it was very depressing. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't sure that I wanted that help to come from God. I was in a very, very dark place, and to be honest, I was at a crossroads, and I didn't even realize it. I was standing in a place where I could have made a choice, and those choices were going to take me 4 different directions. And only one of those directions was right, but there was a good chance I could have taken. There was more than a 25% chance I could have taken the wrong direction. So, what happened? Well, to be honest, my wife started moving us in the right direction. She was working with a woman whose dad was a pastor, and she said, "Hey, you should come to my church. Just come check it out." I wasn't feeling it. We had just gotten done with a previous church, and I was still kind of feeling a little raw about it, especially because my mom was the pastor at that church. And the way things ended were not good. I'm not going to get into that for sure ever, so don't ask me to even talk about that. That's personal family stuff. I will never talk about that. And maybe if I write a memoir, I'll talk about it, but I'm not going to throw my mom under the bus. I'm not going to throw her church under the bus. Let's just say that things didn't end on the greatest of terms, and that could have partially been my fault, and it partially was the fault of the people at the church. But I didn't want church. Church wasn't something I was thinking about. It wasn't someplace I wanted to be at the time, and I wasn't sure, And when my wife walked us into this church, I definitely wasn't sure, because my wife walked me into an all-black church, if I'm being frank. I'm not saying that I'm racist, not saying I have a dislike for black people, but to walk me into a church didn't tell me it was a black church, just kind of walked me in, and there I was. And I've talked about this in a previous video, but I want to go through what I was feeling in that moment, what my mindset was. First of all, I was betrayed because you didn't warn me. I wasn't prepared, and I felt like an idiot. I was wearing, these guys were all in suits and nice clothes. I was wearing an Affliction t-shirt. I was wearing cargo shorts, and I was wearing flip-flops. My hair was kind of messy because it was really long at the time. It was even longer than it is right now. And I wasn't very happy. And to be honest, I didn't really listen either. I sat in the back row and I just kind of zoned out. I kind of do it in my notebook. I didn't really do anything. I just sat there. I was just in church checking a box for my wife to make her happy. I was going through the motions for her. And I did that for about 4 weeks, I think. About 4 weeks, yeah, because we started going in late October, beginning of November. For 4 weeks, I kind of sat there and didn't do anything. But then one day, the pastor was giving his altar call, and for some reason, I felt this beating inside of my chest, this pull, this almost gravity pulling me not down but pulling me up towards the front. And I realized he was giving the altar call, and he was saying, if anyone wants to be saved or baptized right now, I was like, now is the time. And I didn't know what that meant. I wasn't sure I even wanted to go through it. But I just felt this pull, and I had to obey it. There wasn't a whether or not I wanted to. I had to. I felt this pull in my spirit to just go, and I didn't know what that was at the time. I just felt this pull in my heart to just go to the front and follow the directions when you got there. So I got up there, and the pastor looked me in my eyes, and he said things to me that I hadn't said to anyone. I discussed how I was feeling to myself. He discussed my mindset at the time, and he said, your life is about to change, son. And those are powerful words, because I needed change. I just didn't know how to go about changing the right way. So fast forward to December 13th, 2015. After 3 more weeks of kind of listening to the pastor and actually listening to the word and moving from the back seat to the middle of the church, started taking notes, started reading my Bible, started praying, and December 13th, 2015, I surrendered my life to Christ. It was my baptism day. It's a day that I gave God my yes. I said, God, I'm gonna do what you want me to do. It's not because I had it all figured out either. Like, it's not because I knew what God wanted me to do. It's not because I knew that God, was preparing me for something. So I want to encourage anyone, if you're feeling like you want to say yes to God, but you're not sure, just say yes and let Him work it out. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do either, and I still was pulled in the right direction by Him, because I was following Him. But I did it because I had nothing left to hold on to. My marriage was pretty much a sham because I was just going through the motions at that time. Church was the only thing I really had that had any meaning to my life, and our marriage was kind of getting better, but it was still like, I still felt like she held something against me. Like, I felt like my wife was just, every time I felt like she was just side-eyeing me, or she was looking for a way out because I had hurt her so bad. And I didn't understand what that meant until a couple years from 2015. I know what that meant, but I figured it out. And when I figured it out, it felt so much more of a responsibility to make sure that I knew that I had made sure that she was loved for the rest of her life. And I want to make it very clear here. I was not looking for some kind of fresh start. I wasn't looking for, a brand new avenue. I wasn't looking for, a new road to walk down, a new road to pave myself. I wasn't looking for that. I knew that in my heart, and from reading the Word, I knew that I needed a foundation to lay this new man on. Because I knew the old foundation was rocky. It was shifty at best. I mean, he was living on, rocks that were sitting on sand. There was no straight foundation on it. I was hopping from one boulder to the next, trying to keep myself out of the water. And so for the next 2 or 3 months, maybe 4 months, I just sat back and learned. I read my Bible. I started opening up to God more. Started staying up. I started trying to hear him again, because I could hear him before, and I lost that whenever I broke my marital vow, and I started listening to the devil. Quite frankly, for being straight honest, I was listening to the devil tell me that I didn't need to stay in my marriage, that I wanted to be with the other woman, that I wanted to, like, you guys don't understand. I was looking for apartments. I was looking for new phone companies. I was looking for ways out. I was looking for an opportunity to leave. And it's very hard to think about because of how much love we have for each other now. For me to think that at one point I didn't even want to be here. But I served and I found God, and like, I think it was like maybe April, May of that year, I walked back to my pastor's office and I was finally like, listen, I was like, I don't care what you need me to do. I don't care if you don't have anything for me to do. I need you to let me serve. I'll wash windows, I'll sweep the floor, I'll paint the walls, I'll tear up the carpet, I'll wash the baptismal. I just need to serve. I need to be in the church. I need to do something. And I dove in. And they gave me a full plate. I was serving in worship. I was worship leader at one point. I was leading worship at one point. I was leading the church in the start of the day prayer. I was giving small little 5-minute messages at that point. But anything else I could do, like those are the fun things I did. Anything else I could do, washing the baptismal out, vacuuming, moving stuff around, cleaning the chairs, getting Pastor his tea. Anything I could do to serve, that's what I did. I needed to work. I needed God to know that I was all in on this. That I wasn't just playing Christian, that I was diving in as I didn't want to be the prodigal son, and I didn't want to be the son that stayed, that complained about the party later. I wanted to be the son that did the work and partook of the celebration, but honored his father in everything he did. That's the son I wanted to be. I had already been the church son, and I had, been part of the church, and I served in the church, and I was, with my mom in her church. And then I was the prodigal son when I broke from the church and I broke from my marriage, and I tried to get out of that. And it was finally time for me to be that loving and adoring and persevering son that God called me to be. So I started serving. Anything I could do, like I said. And finally, for the first time in probably 2 or 3 years, I finally felt alive again. I felt like I was finally on the right track. And God, for whatever reason, had chosen me and was moving through me. And it was the most powerful year of my life. When I finally gave in and started moving with Him, everything fast tracked. I went from serving, small time to preaching full Sundays. Leading the bake sale, being in charge of stuff, having a key to lock up the church, like big things, that I'd never seen myself doing before, and I was finally, in a good place spiritually. But I want to warn you guys that sometimes what we feel and what's true aren't always the same thing. Oh, let me find my notes here. So I want to talk about that these years I started preaching. 2016 to 2017. I wanted to talk to you about the realization of what I went through. And I called this point the hidden battle. Because behind the scenes of all this great stuff I was doing, serving the church, preaching, I was struggling so hard, guys. Like, I want you to understand. I want you to understand that I don't care who you are or where you're at or where you're from or what you're going through. I want you to understand you are not alone at that point in your life. I want you to understand that every Christian man who is honest with himself will tell you that they struggled, that they went through a season and they weren't perfect the way people expected them to be. Because behind the scenes, I would write my message down Friday night, and then I would close my computer, I would turn off my iPad, I would close my Bible. I'd look left, I'd look right, and I opened my computer back up, and I was watching porn. I was struggling with the porn, I was struggling with lust, I was struggling with masturbation. I knew at that point that I had to really make that that final change, that final, step out in faith. Like I was teetering on the ledge, and it felt good because it was exhilarating. I was finally serving God. I was finally in a place spiritually, but I needed to finally step out. I needed to make that step in faith, but I wasn't ready to do what was necessary to break free. And I want you to understand something. You might not know what you're struggling with. It might not be something you realize until you actually start walking with God and He starts to expose those things in you. Or you could know. I mean, we all know that porn is bad. We all know that lust is bad. We all know that masturbation is bad. Some people might not think it is, but it is. It's a very bad thing. It makes us numb to the actual act of performing, with our partners, our marriage, our people that we're married to, fully, because we're so numb to that dopamine hit. It's bad. It's terrible. But I want you to understand something, that there is a breakthrough for you if you just trust in God. If you just believe in Him for what you need, He will bring it into that place. Because like so many people, I convinced myself that as long as I was doing good on the outside, it didn't matter what was happening behind the closed doors. But the Bible tells us that anything, and I mean anything that is hidden in darkness will come to light. I should know that because I had an affair and I tried to hide it, and my wife still found out. And I was still trying to play secret soldier and be Mr. Goody Goody while people were looking at me. But as soon as they turned my backs on me, I was, dancing with the devil again. So from 2017 to 2019, after I realized what I was doing, I continued to live this double life. I lived a double standard, preaching righteousness but walking in compromise. How many pastors do you think do that? Because I think the percentage is somewhere around 85% of pastors preach righteousness but walk in compromise in something in their lives. But and most of the time it is porn. It's something that really, I think 95% of all Christians are addicted to it. So don't think that you are alone. There are plenty of us out there that have struggled with it. And the thing with the double standard is that my own hypocrisy was starting to break me. God was pulling on me. He was convicting me. He was, trying to tell me, hey, Curtis, knock it off. It's not good for you. It's not what I need from you. It's not what I want for you. But I wasn't listening. I was resisting. And to be honest, I started to grow bitter. Bitter towards God. Bitter towards my wife. Bitter towards the church. It was no longer the place I once loved to serve and that I once loved to go to on Sundays. It now became a burden. And my pastor would call me on Friday and say, can you bring the word on Sunday? And I go, yeah, I can bring the word on Sunday. And I bring the word on Sunday. And it was a great word because the word was from God. But the vessel that was bringing it was so unwilling. You need to understand how powerful that statement is. That we should be willing vessels to do the good work. The willing man that is willing to step out, and not begrudgingly but cheerfully and joyfully in our hearts. What I once felt like was a home and church now felt like a prison to me. And I couldn't wait to get out of there. Instead of confronting my struggles, I blamed everyone around me. And I held on to that grudge like it was my identity. Like I was the guy who was being wronged. I was the guy who wasn't being helped. I was the guy who, needed help but nobody wanted to be there for. I was that guy. I was pointing fingers and blaming people for things that I was doing. And it wasn't right. And it came to a breaking point in 2019 to 2020. We all know what happened in 2019 to 2020. 2019 to 2020, COVID. And I might get demonetized. This video might get pulled down because I just said that word. But it happened. The pandemic happened. But before the pandemic, there was another event. There were two wake-up calls during this point in 2019 to 2020. First was what I will call the popcorn event. I don't want to get into it, but the church pointed fingers and started blaming me and my wife for something that we had no control over, that we were given leadership over, and then once we made choices or decisions, we were told they were wrong because they didn't cater to the pastor or to the church. Now they were not bad events. I mean, I might as well just tell you. We did a fundraiser, and we sold popcorn and candles for the fundraiser because we were one of those churches. We raised funds for everything. What we were raising funds for, I have no idea. But they wanted to do a fundraiser. Me and my wife were like, all right, cool, we'll do a fundraiser. So we sold popcorn and candles. Halfway through the fundraiser, the first lady of the church called Ashley in and told her she wasn't selling the candles anymore because they weren't selling enough candles. For whatever reason, fine, whatever. We didn't like it, but we were being obedient. Then the popcorn came, and the one popcorn, there was a paying customer that bought popcorn, and the pastor bought popcorn. Same flavor, but the paying customer's popcorn broke. So we replaced this customer with pastor's popcorn and had another bag coming in. And there was a point in time where we were giving out the popcorn, we were talking about how great the fundraiser was, and our first lady gets up and she says, I'm not saying this verbatim, I'm paraphrasing. Miss Ashley, I want you to understand, or Sister Ashley, I want you to understand that we take care of our pastor first. Kind of a dig that we didn't give pastor his popcorn because we wanted to, help the people out that were supporting our church. So that was a moment where God made it very clear that my spiritual diet was weak, so to speak. As a pun on words because we were selling popcorn, but my spiritual diet was weak. I was no longer, wanting to be there because of things we were going through and things we were seeing, happen in the natural. But then COVID hit. Everything shut down. And with the noise and silence, I had to ask myself. I really had to sit and ask myself, was I being led by God or was I just following a man? The hurt I experienced in church, it wasn't from God. God didn't hurt me in the church. God never laid a finger on me in church. God was there for me. He helped me. He pulled me up. He supported me. He told me he loved me and he gave me a place to call home. But it's not the God of the church that hurts people. It's the people in the church that hurt people. If you've been hurt by the church, I want you to understand something. You are not alone. And it happens way too frequently. And I want you to understand something. A church should be a place where you're welcomed. That you're not just a checkbook for people to draw out of. You're not just a tithing machine for people to draw out of. You are someone that is there to be taught and raised in the Spirit, raised in the truth, raised in faith. So COVID hit and I realized that I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I was following God, if I was following a man. I was following a man of God, Those are not the same thing. These are not the same thing, people. A man of God does not mean he is a man from God. He is just a man of God. It's not the same thing. And as I realized where this church hurt was coming from, I realized I was holding on to it. I wasn't letting it go. I was holding on to it, and I didn't want to let it go because I don't know why. I don't know why. But I could tell you something. I could tell you what I didn't know. I knew that it wasn't helping me. I was not helping me heal, and it was keeping me bound to this place. And here's what I've learned throughout this whole process. I've learned the power of a clean break. Because, let me scroll here. A clean break will heal back stronger than the original bone. If you break a bone and the bone stays in place, there's no chips, there's no fragments, and you set it and you let it heal, it will get stronger. It will calcify and become stronger than it was even before it was broken. And just like me with my spirit, when set properly, it is stronger than before. Because God doesn't come to the people who are whole. He comes to the people that are broken because that's who need him. And he takes that brokenness and he makes it better. He makes you strong in your weakness. He gives you power. He gives you strength when you have none. He revitalizes your spirit. He walks before you as a standard. But you have to allow that healing process to take place. You have to let go of what's toxic. You have to let go of what's uneven. You have to let go of what's holding you back. You cannot hold on to those things. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a church, whether it's a friendship, whether it's family, a mindset, or even your own hidden sins. You have to let that go, because then and only then will you have enough room inside yourself to let God and His Holy Spirit come into you to start that healing, filling process. So, now that you know where, and from there I found legacy, I've talked about this a few times. When I walked in a Legacy Faith Church for the first time, Pastor gave an altar call. I don't go for prayer very often. I don't, to be honest, I don't. I'm not the biggest, prayer guy, to go up for prayer. I encourage everybody to do it. I do it when I feel pulled to do it, but it's not like I need to run up and get prayer every single Sunday. But when I walked into church that first day, I didn't like the pastor. I didn't like what he was saying. I didn't like how he talked. I didn't like how he presented himself. I didn't like how he presented his faith or how he thought faith should be used. He was very, very strong, very willed, very powerful, very, very purposeful with his words. Something I hadn't experienced before. It's not something I had ever done or seen done in my old church. My old church was a let go and let God deal with it kind of church, But he called the altar call, and I went up. I was third person up there. I don't know how I got up there so fast, but I was third person in line. I remember that. I was third person in line, and Pastor walked up to me, and he looks me in my eye, and I started to close my eyes, and he says, no, look at me. He's look at me, look into my eyes. And he's like, what do you need? What can God do for you today? He didn't say, what can I do for you? He didn't say, what do you need me to do for you? He said, what can God do for you today? That was a big thing I needed to hear in my spirit. And I get emotional thinking about it now, and I literally broke down crying. I was crying, and I felt terrible because I was this big grown man. I was crying to this other big grown man. But when I looked in his eyes, there was no judgment there. I don't want to say there was pity, but there was definitely an empathy, because it's something he had probably seen so many times before. Full-grown men coming, and I told him, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember what he said to me. He said, that's okay. You're home now. And then I woke up on the floor. And it was a powerful time for me. And even then, I still didn't accept the church for what it was. I was just, at that point, I was angry because, all right, God, you said I'm home. I was like, well, then I'm going to sit in my house until someone calls me to do something else. And I did. And I'll get into that later. But I want to stay in the mindset of that clean break. The clean break means we have to break free from any, and I mean any, uneven yokes. 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness, and what communion has light with darkness? It's not just about the relationships. That's not what's important. What's important is that it's about anything, and I mean anything that pulls you away from God, anything that causes you to separate yourself from God. We can be unequally yoked to our past, to our bitterness, to our sins, even our religion, if we let it become a routine instead of a relationship with Jesus. Your religion, your religious spirit, your religious mindset can make you unevenly yoked, because instead of focusing on serving God, you're focusing on serving a set of laws, or in my case, a man of God, not a man from God. And that's a very, very dangerous place to be. So this is my call today. I'm getting ready to close. I'm scrolling the wrong way. Yeah, this is my close. John 8:36 says, therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. True freedom does not come by covering up your struggles, or trying to sweep things under the rug, or by doing good deeds to try and outweigh the bad deeds or the things that you've done that weren't considered good. It comes from breaking free. It comes from surrendering to God. And not just surrendering, but surrendering fully. I mean, hands up, on your knees, just expose everything to Him. Give it all to him. Let him take everything. And then watch what he can do. Watch how stronger you become. Watch how much he rebuilds you into who he needs you to be to work in his kingdom. Because God wants you, each and every one of you, to work in his kingdom. He has a purpose for you. He's got a place for you. He's got a set time for you. He's got a promise and a prophecy on your life for you to work in the kingdom, to be a joint heir, to be a king, to be a priest, to be someone who partakes of the glory of eternity. He has that for you. If you just allow him to work in you, if you allow him to build you up, to make you what he needs you to be for his kingdom. So my question to you is, what do you need to break free from? What's holding you back from the life that God has for you? And why are you holding on to a life that is so much less than a God who we call immeasurable can give to you? This is a God that is called a much more God. He's called immeasurable. He's called overwhelming power. The provider, the healer. The way maker. The way, the truth, the light. This is the God that I serve. This is the God I'm encouraging all people to turn their lives to. Because he doesn't ask you for anything except for obedience. And even then, that obedience isn't to hold you back. It's not to restrict you. It's not to put you in a place where you feel like you're not able to move. It's a freeing obedience because you know exactly what you need to do and you know exactly where it's going to take you. You know the rewards that are waiting for you. You know the place that is there for you that he went before to prepare for us. That's what obedience gets us. It gets us the glory. It gets us the eternity. It gets us the streets of gold. It gets us the rivers of living water. It gets us the light of the world. It gets us into the absolute of heaven. That's what letting go. That's what it means to let go of that unhealthy attachment. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. Let it go. Because I promise you this. If you let God set it right. If you let God reset that bone. If you let God put that thing back in place. If you let God put it back in place. If you stop trying so hard to put the things back in place. Have you ever had a Lego set when you were a kid? I had a few. You had a Lego set and you had that one block that had to go in. And you had this one block in this really sketchy place and you couldn't quite get it in. And there was a point in time where you knew you should probably set it down and walk away. And even my mom would be like, hey Curtis, you're looking a little frustrated. Maybe you should put the Lego set down. But I said, no, I got this. And what do? I go to push the block in, I crush the Lego set, pieces fly everywhere, I throw it against the wall, storm out, and I got to restart the whole process over again. But if you let God set that brick, if you let him set that final piece, if you let him set that thing that has been missing in your life, which is his son Jesus, which is his Holy Spirit, which is his teachings, which is his law, which is his presence and his power, which is his love, which is his grace and his mercy. If you let him set that back into you, if you let him take out that stony heart and put in that heart of flesh, I can promise you, you will come out stronger than even you could have imagined. You will be walking in greater blessings than even you could have imagined. You'll be walking in greater health, in greater love, in greater distinction. You'll be walking in the power of God instead of under your own power. And every man's power is fallible. There's not a single man who is infallible. Every man is fallible. God is infallible. God is perfect. Every time. All the time. So I just want to encourage you. I'm going to pray us out. I'm going to send us to the close. And yeah. Father, we don't just want to look free. God, I pray, God, that each and every one of us wants to be free. And help us, God, be free to the point where you help us surrender the things that keep us bound. Help us, Lord, to let go. God, I pray, God, that you break the chains that are holding us down. You break the anchors off of our feet, Lord. That you heal the wounds. That you set the bones, Lord. That you make us stronger than ever before. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please, if you would, hit the like button. Drop a comment down below. What did you like? Did it impact you? Was there anything about this video that spoke to you, that lit up your spirit, that ignited that faith just a little more? I would love to hear about it. And, if you really liked it, think about subscribing. Hit that notification button to stay up to date with any future progress, any future uploads, any future projects. If there's anyone that is watching that wants to partner with me to do some motivational speaking or some, guest speaking opportunities, I will drop the email link down here. Email me with any info on any projects. I would love to start my motivational speaking career sooner rather than later. But yeah, as always, guys, I encourage you to walk boldly, to live fearlessly, and to embrace the power that God has for our lives. I'll catch you next one. I love y'all.